Good morning, family, and welcome to today's Lessons for Life.
Today is January 30th, 2009, and today we'll be reading from Numbers chapter 6.
Okay, great. Numbers chapter 6, and as you see, we have a nice large panel here today. But Numbers 6, and it's a pretty interesting chapter, and there's a lot you get from it, so as always, I encourage you to read it through for yourself and see what you get, and then you can email us and we'll put it on the blog. But what I see first is I'm reading this chapter, it's talking about the vow of the Nazarite. And as I was reading it, one of the first things I want to say in Lessons for Life is, it started talking about the vow of the Nazarite, but at that point I didn't know, well, what is the vow of the Nazarite? So one of the first things that I want to tell you as you're reading the scriptures is to, it should force you or really lead you into doing further research and further study to find out what you're reading about. Because a lot of times you can read something you might not know, because I was thinking back to what we read so far as we were reading through scripture, and there was nothing I can recall that was mentioned about the vow of Nazarite. So what I did was I did a search, and now we have the age of the internet, we can do a search on there, and I was able to look and see some other some other discussions of the vow of the Nazarite. But it was able to help me to even get a clear understanding of what was being done. But one of the first things, like I said, as I was reading through this chapter, is really talking about a particular separation or a vow of separation unto the Lord. And I believe there was about three major things that had to be done by the person as they were making that vow as far as separation. One was that they weren't supposed to drink what were they not supposed to drink, guys?
Anything with
Wine.
Anything like grapes in it.
Right.
Okay.
Liquid.
Okay. Any liquids? Not any liquids, but no, not any wine. That was one of the things. And secondly, that they were not supposed to
Cut their hair.
Shave
their hair off, yeah.
Okay, cut their hair. And then the third thing was they were not supposed to
hang around dead people.
Okay, be with dead.
That's right.
Hang around, be with dead. Okay, so let's just we'll quickly just talk on those three things for the vow, because I think this is something, like I said, this is a separation unto the Lord, and it's something that we all could follow and be, go through this kind of a vow of separation, because that's when you can really, dedicate yourself to the Lord and get that deep insight revelation from the Lord. But the first thing was not to drink any wine. And if you remember, I think the son or Isaiah probably, you had asked me the other day. Isaiah, you over there? Okay. You had asked me the other day about drinking wine and if it tastes good. You remember? Okay. And I know we had talked about some Lessons for Life, but I said to you, remember what I said to you?
You said it.
You got to talk louder. So.
You said it doesn't taste good.
Okay. Well, yeah, I said, and I said this on Lessons for Life before too, that to me it doesn't have a particularly pleasant taste, but why do people drink it then?
Because it makes them feel better.
It makes them feel good. Okay. So one of the first things I saw, from that first one is that they're supposed to give up that feeling of a fleshly, worldly, what do you say, pleasure?
Like a pleasurable kind of
of the flesh. Yeah. So any kind of pleasure for the flesh. And really, this is a very a disciplined kind of a vow where you're really just focusing on God and focusing on things of the Lord. So the first thing was to give up that fleshly, pleasurable thing. Secondly was about what we just said, shaving their head. Okay, anybody want to say anything about shaving your hair?
If you let your hair grow, it means that you are under somebody else's covering.
Under that, okay. Okay, now Deshaun, very good. And I just want to bring a different spin on that. Now Deshaun, or let me say, I'll bring Cat. Okay. When you would do your hair, or you would, put your hair and make your hair up, or even, boys, whatever, the song probably you get more into it. You do your hair to do what? Make yourself look nice, to make you
feel good.
You make yourself feel good too when you're doing your hair. And isn't that also a fleshly, pleasurable thing that you're doing when you're doing your hair? Yeah, so you're taking care of yourself and you're, cutting your hair and, making yourself look good, and when you make yourself look good, you also feel good. So that's also another type of a worldly pleasure too as well. When you don't let your hair grow, it's like you're not concerned with what anybody's thinking about you, not concerned about, how your physical appearance, because your focus, your total dedication is really on the Lord, and what your service right now, this is a vow that you make to separate yourself unto the Lord. So if you're separated, you don't need to be looking all good for the Lord. And so, and there was one more thing that was, what was the third part of that vow that we just mentioned?
Around being around the dead.
Okay, being around the dead. Anybody want to say anything about being around the dead?
Well, there was a
kind of creepy.
well, there was a as even I was looking on about the Nazarite vow of consecration. It talks about, there was a particular scripture that was brought up that the wages of sin is death. I believe it's found in Romans, and it stated that being around the dead really is being in sin. So being around sin, it's as if you're
being around the dead.
Yeah, just
and that's
and
so
it's death. It's yeah. So
okay.
pretty much, if you want to stay away from sin, you stay away from the dead. You pretty much like you'll defile yourself. That's what it talks about. You defile yourself.
So this really ties in together really with just being separated from other people. Just being separated because, when you're around sin, then you're around death. Because, like you said, the wages of sin is death. So this all still goes into separation. And, overall what I want to bring up even for Lessons for Life today is just really about taking that time of separation. And I think we all need to go through it. I, as the head of this household, need to go through it. Karen, as the head of the physical house, and the head of the children and so forth, you need to go through it. And the children sometimes, we all actually need to go through a time of separation, of just dedicating ourselves to the Lord, just not being concerned with what other people are thinking, but really just focusing on what God has for us to do, and focusing on the Lord's will for our life. So that's something I think that we all can get from it, and any one of us can practice it. Just really being separated and just focusing on God's will for our lives.
God's center, being the center. Just as you brought up before in a previous Lessons for Life, that this tabernacle being amongst the Israelites, just having God as the center. It was in the center of the camp. That's where they went, and just having God as a center, and not just an added bonus or added benefit to our life, but really the center where everything else kind of branches off. Everything else kind of everything in your life branches off of the Lord, not Him being just a little bonus as part of your daily routine.
And this actually, as we're talking here today, this Lessons for Life is really for you children as you guys get older. So hopefully as you're watching yourselves and you get older, you'll see this. But one thing I want you guys to remember to, take the time, like how we're doing this, take your time out with your children, make sure you have your prayer lesson, and have your, your time that you teaching your children different things, and you can show them these videos that we're doing now of you when you was, playing around on tables, arena and stuff like that. And, soon we talked about even doing this kind of stuff and broadcasting this stuff as well too, our prayer lessons. But actually, just as a final thing, one thing that we had talked about even yesterday, it was a word that came to me yesterday, and I think it kind of even puts this whole thing together with the separation. When I was praying, if you remember in prayer, I said the word selflessness. Selflessness, which is really being dead to self and really just being about the spiritual things of the Lord. And selfless means that you're not really concerned about what's going on with your physical body. As this separation, this vow, you're not worried about your hair, you're not worried about feeling good with the drink, and you're not worried about anything else of the flesh, but really just concerned about what is the Lord's will for you and what the Lord wants you to do. So really, we kind of squeeze a lot into this Lessons for Life. Once again, I encourage you to read it through for yourself and see what you get, and email us and put it on the blog. But with that, we're going to end with how we always end.
Create yourself a wonderfully blessed day today, and we'll talk again tomorrow.